once again with
Why do
Amityville.
you fill me up, Buttercup, baby, just to
Evil
let me
still
down?
reigns in Amityville, England.
Out.
Guess who's back?
Get out.
Back again.
Like right now.
Drew is back.
Everyone
Bring
thinks
up
because
friend.
you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the Tomb of the Terrible. I am your humble servant, UncleNecRo, and tonight I am joined by Del and there he is. And then Pyle. Welcome back. Chaos, are you there? She's invisible. Friday?
She's blending into
Oh,
herself.
hello.
Yeah, you might have drank too much if she's invisible.
I told you about the phase shifter. That thing can get addictive. But Friday and Chaos here, as well as Ron and his little spank monkey. How's everybody doing?
It's a sloth.
Spank monkey.
Sloth.
Spanky monkey.
I've got fucking sinus issues, and Ratatosker is worried that he might have drank too much moonshine because he can't see Friday off and on. I don't know if you went blind from it or not, honey. If so, I did too. It's okay.
Film gone wrong. Don't worry about it.
Wow, it's been a while. Hey, that rhymed.
It's
How
been a
many?
while, yes.
How was the hunting season?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. I freaked out so many people, and a lot of people will never forget me because I will be underneath their bed if they forget me.
No, I was figuring you more of a closet jumper guy.
No,
That's just, no.
when your bed starts going sideways because something's underneath it, you know it's my fat ass.
That's
Pyle's
just
gonna
means
make
that
your
they're
bed rock.
You're a mub, not a Mick. Monster
When,
under the bed instead of monster in the closet.
fun UncleNecRo fact. When one of my nephews was 5, he was afraid of the thing that was underneath the bed, and so I decided to, make him feel better by telling him that the thing underneath the bed you shouldn't be afraid of. That thing is much more afraid of that thing that's in your closet than he is of you. So he turned out okay, I think. Anyway, tonight we are continuing the journey down the winding road to madness, encountering the films that have latched onto the Amityville name like leeches betwixt my nethers, with the 2021 movie Amityville Scarecrow, written by Shannon Holliday and directed by Jack Peter Mundy. After their mother passes away, two sisters find themselves owners of a shut-down summer camp. Soon, the sisters will learn the dark and deadly secrets that happened at the summer camp many years ago and the legend of the Scarecrow. Booga, booga, booga. So, was this everybody's first time watching this movie?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, same here. So, all across the board. It's a pity that Sam can't make it tonight because this just, we need his wisdom. Boy, howdy. So, what was everybody's first impressions on this? We'll start with Del.
First of all, Ratatosker said that you need to see a doctor about that thing with your nethers going on because that shouldn't be happening.
Well.
Second of all, to anybody watching from Facebook right now, StreamYard and Facebook are having issues. So if you speak to us, you might just show up as Facebook user and we might not know who you are. We might not be streaming there. We don't really know. It's a thing. It's happening. Streaming services are fighting with each other. Can't help it.
We tried.
So,
It
yeah.
might have.
Yeah, there's some things that just are beyond our control. What I thought about this movie was, I was very confused about Amityville suddenly being a farm in Great Britain. Because as it goes through it like almost they mentioned that they moved to the UK after all of the Amityville stuff happened, and that the house was torn down and a cornfield was behind it. But anybody who's watched the actual Amityville horror or read it or studied it knows that it's right next to a lake, and they have a boathouse, and it's in a like neighbors. Like it's a neighborhood. So they're like, in this one, they're like, oh, somebody besides the DeFeos killed all these people. And then they burned down the house and put in a cornfield and a camp, but the evil was still there or something. And then the mom bought it and moved to Britain. But they seemed like they were still driving British cars. Everybody except for the two sisters were British. And, it would be like, okay, well, they came back, but it's not it, but everything was still British. So I don't know where they came back to, and they just like flew their cars with them rather than renting some. And all of the old cars that had been stuck there forever had British license plates on them. So it wasn't very believable as being like, and then we came back here for this. There is also, this is the first time I've really seen a show where there were sister cousins and stuff that wasn't a like family hedge. There was just like the two sisters, one of them had an affair, and they like have with the other sister's husband. And so I was really confused. It took a long time to figure out if the two girls, yes, they're actually sisters. This is Daddy Dick around. And here we go with one of the, but these are his two different wives, and both of them were daughters. They're like, oh, we got along so great back in the day, and it's like, but you were both born about the same time, and the mothers quit talking to each other. So how did you become friends if your family didn't interact? So there were a lot of confusing elements to this besides just the story overall. Just trying to get the family organized in my head as to who was who and what was what and stuff was really confusing. I will say though, and I used a little bit of an enhancement on this one so we could get a better view. The Scarecrow, I'm giving us a couple different looks at him. They did a really good job, I think, with making a scary Scarecrow outfit. And I remember when I was like in high school or something, my sister got a Scarecrow outfit. And it was supposed to be just like the Wizard of Oz Scarecrow, but pulling on that mask, I mean, even just wearing your regular clothes, putting that burlap sack over your head, and even though it's supposed to be like a kind of friendly Scarecrow, is scary as shit. Scarecrows are just inherently one of those things that I think spooks people. And but they did really good. They got a really fucked up looking scarecrow and costume and everything. So I did appreciate that part of the movie. I was like, at least if we're gonna have, kind of a tropey skeleton or scarecrow thing, like he moved really cool and he had a good costume. So
Yeah.
that was my initial view of the movie.
Okay.
Sorry, I kind of
Well,
vomited everything, but
at least you're not literally vomiting anything out right now. So thank you.
nope, just draining.
Yeah. I think we're all there. But Pyle, what were your first impressions of this movie?
Honestly, she hit it correct. I mean, it was very confusing trying to figure out who's who, what's, and why. Just to figure out that the father liked both sisters, which, you know what? If you got good genes, keep them in the family, I guess. But yeah, it just really was kind of confusing on that for a little bit. And then as it keeps on playing and everything was going through, it start making pieces here and there. But yeah, you absolutely 100%, even the cop was British. I mean, the style of the officer and this and that, absolutely everything was Britain. And I have not watched a whole bunch of Amityville stuff, but that just, I kind of glad after just watching this and going, But yeah, the Scarecrow, I really did enjoy the Scarecrow. Especially the part where they are like, oh, well, we're going to check this Scarecrow. Come to find out that someone's face is underneath it. That is not the Scarecrow.
I was going to ask you, Pyle, having the haunted field, what did you think of this? Did the Scarecrow match up to haunter quality?
Yeah, I mean, I really did like it. And in fact, I was thinking, if I had this character, where would I put him? Yeah, I would have a perfect spot for him. And the way that he was moving, that was not a normal movement, is exactly how I like to have people. When you don't move normally, it gives that creep out effect very much so. So yeah, I really like this Scarecrow. It's kind of hard to have a good Scarecrow just because everybody whines and complains that you shove straw where straw should not be to make it actually look fake.
Gotcha.
Well, welcome back, by the way, Pyle, and such wondrous sights we are going to show you during this season. Sweet Pyle.
Better than Velociraptor.
Or Velocipaster.
Yep.
Which we need to see the sequel. But before Friday phase shifts out of reality again, what was your first impression?
I was not expecting to have a BBC film. And then when I started watching it, I'm like, well, this goes about as well as most dramas on BBC. I've seen some better. And they made it very hard to catch up to who was who and what was what at the beginning. It was not as clear as I'd hoped it would be. And it actually was better than some of the other ones we've seen. After you figure out the relationships, the plot was more easily followed. So, yeah, unexpected BBC, not as bad as it could be filmed.
Okay. Chaos?
I'm still kind of thrown off about how, of all the Amityville things we've watched so far, the British have seemed to have done a better job than most of these other folks that we've watched so far.
Okay.
What the hell?
Well, they're a lot more dignified than we are. So, I mean, anytime you want to have somebody sound intelligent and knowing their stuff, you give them a British accent. Either that or they're the bad guy. I don't know.
I was gonna say that.
That's German. That's German. Every time a German is on the screen, it's a bad guy.
And you always
Explain
got to
Star
give them
Wars.
weird round glasses too.
Yeah, explain Star Wars. You will do it and you will like it.
Space Sorcery.
Now I want to
Ron,
hear
what-
Darth Vader in a German accent.
Look, I am your father.
Schnitzel,
Now turn around and go get me a schnitzel.
Ratspeedoid, Volkswagen. Anyway, get me a strudel. Ron, what was your first impression?
Those cities.
My first impression most definitely was not Darth Vader. I can't really do impressions all that much.
That wasn't very good impression either. So,
Everyone has already mentioned how confused they were to find out that everyone in the movie pretty much has a British accent. So I won't harp on that too much. So getting past the fact that once again we have a cover that does not really align with anything in the movie whatsoever, since there is no Amityville house in the movie at all. Ultimately, though, I thought that the storyline was mostly solid for the most part. I mean, there's some questionable timeline / believability kind of things, but for the most part, I thought that the story was pretty good and the movie was held together fairly well.
okay. Well, as far as I go, essentially, what about maybe 1/4 of the way in, I thought, okay, so the music cues that they're using, the overly dramatic story beats and the acting. This is a UK, as they say, a BBC soap opera with a sentient killer scarecrow. Kind of ham-fisting the whole Amityville angle in there just for name recognition, possibly. But this is essentially a UK-based soap opera. So, as far as the trivia goes, the only thing I could really find was this was originally titled Amityville Cornfield, which, as Dell has pointed out, and anybody who's actually seen the original movies, whether it be the original one from the 70s or the remake with Ryan Reynolds, there is a lake behind the house, not a cornfield. So, moving along here, we're going to talk about what we actually liked about the movie, which could go either way. Let's, Dell.
I liked the potential that it had. There were there were all these I didn't grab any pictures of them. I thought maybe they'd have some they had all these shots, and then I went and they're all production shots, so it was like the camera in them. But they had all these boards made up like with kids' pictures, and some of them X'd out, and newspaper articles and ribbons and thumbtacks and stuff that led you to believe that, wow, there's going to be some like real great lore coming out of this, and we're going to be able to track down like who these kids are and what's going on here. And, and it starts off with these people getting killed, and one of them shows up inside of the inside of the Scarecrow. Girl never shows up again. But you think, as you start seeing like all these kids, you're like, oh, maybe they were kids that were at the camp that escaped or something. And I was really confused at first because it was like a summer camp that they turned into a campground, and then they wanted to turn it back into a summer camp. But so I was really excited thinking that I was going to learn more, and then I just didn't. But I thought that it had places that it could have gone if they if they would have explored that more, then the really trying relationship between the two sisters and the husband, like that just made things all around awkward, which, I mean, they were awkward about it, which you kind of are, but I don't know. Like I said, I liked where it could have gone. I did like the Scarecrow costume. I didn't think everything went well with it, but they did a good job with that. And the soundtrack had this neat kind of underlying rumble sound that went with it when something bad was going to happen, and I enjoyed that. As we've said before, unfortunately, with the Amityville spinoffs, we have to say things like, "This was actually a movie." It had a plot, and you could go with it. It wasn't necessarily the strongest plot, but it was one, and it was stronger than almost everyone that we've seen. Like Chaos was saying, the British did a really good job with a take on an Amityville thing. It didn't really need to have the Amityville name in it, but it did pretty good. So yeah, those were the things that I liked. The little, like, oh, who is this girl? Why do I kind of remember her? And you'll learn later, but it had some good moments in it and some great buildup, and then it just didn't carry its own as well as it should have. But
Right.
that's what I liked.
Right. So, Pyle, after all this time, I am so excited to hear, what did you like about this movie? Okay. So, anyway.
I totally froze up. Where are we
Okay.
at?
Did you like anything, Pyle?
Like, I was like,
Hooded man, no.
yeah,
You okay in there?
I am fine. My computer apparently was not so well, but
No.
the things that I liked about the movie, the Scarecrow, I really, for some reason, I think I have a fascination with scarecrows. But I really did like the Scarecrow. He wasn't too much in my eyes. Honestly, you really don't deal with the Scarecrow until halfway through the movie. So you're building this entire thing, and I think it would have been a little better having a few more cues around that Scarecrow. But I did like the Scarecrow. I liked the way it performed. The storyline, everybody said it, it's kind of like watching a BBC, but it was someone thought of it and someone made a movie. So that's what I'm saying. Good job for thinking of it and making a movie.
Excellent.
Didn't have to burn the Scarecrow though. Jerk.
While we're talking about this, I have to admit that for having lived most of my life here in Nebraska, I've never seen an actual scarecrow employed in real life around here. Have you, Del?
No, actually.
Okay.
I haven't.
Huh. Weird. Anyway, that
Welcome
was just
to Ohio. The Amish use them.
weird. I see. We ate all of our Amish. They were pretty good. Friday, what did you like about this movie?
Had a plot. It worked like a movie. They tried to make sense. There was a beginning, middle, and end. Storyline wasn't half bad. And I'm just too desensitized and kind of tired to figure out better words other than yeah, I really enjoyed that this was a very good fan fiction with some of their own elements added. they just decided, you know what? Let's throw away all the original concept and take this one part and make our own world out of it. And I really appreciate that they tried very hard to make it a beginning, middle, and end story.
Yeah. That was nice of him. But Chaos, we're moving to you now. What did you like about this movie?
Well, one of the main things I liked about this movie is, unlike a lot of the other Amityville movies, it didn't start off trying to be a serious horror movie and just say fuck it and devolve into a comedy about a quarter of the way in.
Okay, yeah. There was some consistency on that.
That and this I have to say has to be one of those movies that would have been better if they disassociated it from the Amityville name and had it as a movie to itself.
Yes. A lot of the movies that we watched really could have, especially this one.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's a lot of movies out there that are, there's a whole list of movies you can make where it's just, if you take this off the name, really good movie. But add that to the name, it's just kind of meh.
Yes. So, Pyle, are you taping something up? Who are you taping up?
Let the mailman go.
No. You know what?
Okay.
If I don't get my package, I'm coming for your knees.
Let me just tell
It
you
was
right
sent
now.
by Raz.
You're never going to find them. And I don't care if you have this set of skills to hunt me down. It's not happening.
Let Rob go. He's been busy. He is the mailman, you know. You live in his basement.
You gave us your address.
Well, I'm just
You
telling
also
you.
gotta
Dude,
remember,
you
it
sound
is
like
just
Jeff
time of the
off
month.
of the Muppets. You know that? You sound like Jeff. I was gonna say it was Trevor getting wrapped up because he keeps on touching me.
Don't stop. We see hello, but okay.
Phenomena.
Ron, what did you like about this movie?
I'm gonna go with Chaos on this one and say that it would have been better if they had not associated with the Amityville name. In fact, I think that there are better franchises of movies that they could have hung their shingle on. Children of the Corn would have been more appropriate, but the movie would have worked as a standalone with no reference whatsoever to any other movie franchise because it had a solid story. They could have just called it something like The Legend of the Cornfield Scarecrow and left it at that, and it would have been just as good. They could have started their own series of movies. There is actually a sequel to this one, which takes place about 2 years after. What it's about, I have no idea. This one started out like a 1980s slasher film because they start with the scene of the two teenagers or 20-somethings in the car at the beginning and set it up two characters that you really don't give a shit about, and you just know that they're going to die because that's the trope in these kinds of movies. And of course, they do. So I'm cool with that because it at least introduces the character of the Scarecrow as the killer, and it is a grabber to get you into the movie. But then after that, it's a lot of dialogue until about halfway through the movie when the actual action starts. So I mean, it goes with, what didn't I like about it, would say that in some parts the movie had kind of a slow pacing, but because there's a lot of exposition setting up the story of this family so that we get to understand why they're there. I think that there is a lot of information that you can infer from the dialogue of what they're saying, that they are here at this cornfield to settle the mother's estate, to settle the mother's affairs and decide what to do with all of this stuff. So my impression was that they had not seen each other in a while because one of the families moved to England while the other one remained there in the U.S. or Amityville, depending on where you want this location to be. Setting it in Children of the Corn would have been great because then it would have been in the Midwest. You could have put it anywhere you fucking wanted to because there's cornfields all over out here. It could have been Ohio for all we care.
It's got to be Nebraska. It's got to be Nebraska.
The one thing we get.
Yeah. I mean, it really could have been anywhere because it
horror
doesn't
movie set
a location. What's that?
Horror movie set at Carhenge.
Yeah, Carhenge. Well, my impression on that too was that all of these cars that were there were left over from people that had gotten killed in the cornfield and had just never been recovered. And the Scarecrow was hiding them or piling them up or whatever, which would indicate that the Scarecrow can drive because they were all there bunched up together. Right. Which I suppose is possible. Well, we never actually get to that point to see that as a thing. So I think that there's a lot of information. If you watch it 2 or 3 times, which I don't know why you would probably get a lot more background information on the family itself, which is really what's driving this story. And the Scarecrow is kind of secondary to that. It's just something that happens that happens to be happening at that time because they're there. And they could have, settled the estate anywhere else and there wouldn't have been a movie. So there was a lot, and I agree with Del. There's a lot of potential for this movie if they had just sat down and thought it out and say, hey, why are we hanging our shingle on Amityville? Why don't we just make it as good as we possibly can as a standalone movie? And agreeing with James that this is a BBC type soap opera movie. It's completely done like a lot of the BBC shows that I've watched with the way that it's drawn out and a lot of dialogue and all of that. And I love those BBC crime shows, So as far as I know, as far as I go, this movie was all right in terms of that. It's just low budget and they could have worked on a few things, but other than that, I didn't really have any major problems with it.
Well, as far as I go, what I liked about this movie, and I believe Del has a pick for this one. Skillets very rarely get any love as viable offensive weapons in horror movies. Bravo to this movie for utilizing this oft overlooked feature. I mean, yep, there we go. Skillet versus Scarecrow is one weakness.
That could be a good title for the name. Scarecrow versus Skillet.
Now, I have to admit that the acting in this, while more unseasoned people might find it off-putting, it wasn't horrible. Years of having to sit through my grandmother and mother's soap operas in the summer afternoons kind of worked up a callus to this kind of acting. So it has that going for it. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how masochistic you like to consider yourself, we are now going into the what we didn't like about the movie portion of the show. Del, take it away.
Okay. So there were a couple of things script-wise that kind of had me going, because they find this old newspaper and they're reading about it, and they say that there are the daughter's cousin sisters were reading this old newspaper, and they're like, oh, there were these two brothers who killed their family with a shotgun, and they killed 5 members of their family, and it wasn't a DeFeo, which is fine because they could have done it away from Amityville. I mean, maybe this was a different Amityville. I don't know, but they read up on it, and they were going to go to the institution, and then later on, it says that there was one person, and it was the father who went through and killed everybody. So even though they were reading from the same newspaper article, they had 2 completely different backstories as to why the place was cursed. So that kind of upset me a little bit. As far as the moving to the UK thing went, I think that the way they tried to say it was the adult sisters, when they were younger, I think the mom moved them there as soon as she bought the land, and then just took them away from America altogether to cover up all of her secrets. But you don't really follow that. Like, it was just odd the way they had everything going there. And then the fight scenes, I thought, were rather weird. Like, okay, I get where you're like, okay, they throw, cut off his head, yeah, he's gonna die. Shove a pitchfork through somebody, yeah, they're probably gonna die. But towards the end, there's a fight scene, like getting to the final girl moment, and one of the moms runs in and is fighting, and she gets tripped and suddenly is just like, oh, struggling to move, even though all that happened was she fell down. The Scarecrow hadn't even touched her, and she fell down. And then she's struggling to climb and crawl and get to this crowbar, and the Scarecrow goes after her, but she doesn't even get to whack it. It gets into a struggle and somehow like breaks her wrist or something. And there was just and then this somehow through that injured the Scarecrow, who'd been hit with the aluminum pan at one point a couple of times, and like a board a couple of other times, but hadn't really received damage. And all of a sudden, when they're like throwing gas on it and it's backed into a corner, it's like acting like it's severely injured, but there was no fight scene that led up to that. And it did this weird thing where like it would shove straw in people's mouths after it had them down. And in some cases that seemed to be the thing that killed them. Sometimes it would stab somebody, sometimes, and then it would it randomly had outfits smuggled around the place, apparently, so it had time as soon as it killed somebody to dress them up like a scarecrow, or maybe when it would shove the straw in their mouth, they would start becoming scarecrows or something. I wasn't really sure how that worked. There was just like, okay, this person is dressed up like a scarecrow. This person is killed by just being knocked over and having straw shoved in their mouth. Okay, that's all it took for the cop. The cop has a gun. She's walking around aiming it. She turns around to the Scarecrow, and all of a sudden she doesn't have a gun anymore. She's knocked on the ground. It shoves straw in her mouth, and she's just dead. That made no sense to me. And it cracked me the fuck up, though, when it started shoving the straw down the one mother, that Mary's throat, the brunette, and the other girl comes in and says, "Hey!" And I'm like, "Hay is for horses," but that was straw. But I don't know. That was just a couple. It lacked. It had so many things that it could have done if it was making new scarecrows, because how could it change people so quickly? If there was a power behind that, that would have been cool to know. Like, it's seeding new versions of itself out there. But it just didn't make sense that it had time to completely change the one girl's clothes while terrorizing the other girl and, being out there creeping around for the moms. There was just, it didn't flow right. And there were the missing chunks that didn't make sense. So that's what I didn't like about it, is that it left too much open, and we're going to go back to the pan again. This really should have been cast iron skillet, because you just, if you're out on a campground, you have a cast iron skillet. You don't have a little aluminum pan. But that's what I didn't like about it.
Yeah, I have a couple of cast iron skillets inherited from well, they're heirlooms passed down through the family, and you don't want to mess with them as a weapon. Aluminum pans, they would just snap off.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly. So, also, I'm beginning to wonder, is all of this that you're bringing up, that everybody's bringing up, is that going to be addressed in the sequel? I don't want to watch to find out.
I was
But
thinking of
we'll-
adding it to the wheel.
Yeah, okay. You put that on the wheel, I'm putting Prey 2 on the wheel. So
Is there actually a sequel to that?
Oh,
there
there
are
are
two
4.
sequels.
Oh, I thought there were 4.
To Prey?
Yes. One of them is actually just they smooshed the first 2 movies together and released it as this one big thing. I know. But Pyle, what did you not like about this movie?
There was so much potential. And we took the potential and we said, you know what, we're just going to pour gasoline on a scarecrow and light it on fire. In fact, you don't get to see the scarecrow on fire that I can recall. You just see the gas, and then you see the flickering light. So in my eyes, the scarecrow didn't get put on fire. But I did not like that there was so much beating around the bush. There was so much drama. There was so much this and that. I do not watch Guiding Light when I was a little kid because I didn't like that kind of crap. So to see this stuff be put in a movie, I was waiting for Jerry Springer to come out and flat out say who the father was in some of this, because we were so confused on, that was our sister. Okay. So we figured out. I really didn't like the fact that, you know, there was a scarecrow here, a scarecrow there, and they didn't explain how the scarecrow could go from one point to another. And I wish that would have been done, because honestly, I had a whole thought process to the way that this was going to work out. Was one scarecrow was possessed. He created more scarecrows, and as they were starting to turn into these scarecrows, I thought, well, you know what? This scarecrow is going to get destroyed, and he just goes over from body to body to body. And I come to find out, nothing. Because they don't tell you anything. How can you hit a scarecrow, it's all in pieces, and then 5 seconds later look over and there's another scarecrow standing there? No. Explain how your scarecrows operate. If you're going to be something that possesses something, then give the knowledge that, okay, this jumps from one. I mean, there is a possibility that you guys could have made that, like, magical light go from one thing to another to show, and that would have been so much better. But I really didn't like how that got played. But I'm not even getting into the skillet, because you guys are absolutely right. Cast iron is so much better.
Yeah, note for future sequels, cast iron. But
no more sequels. No.
Yeah, I think all of our discussions we're coming up with way better ideas to make this a better movie that they didn't even think to consider. Even with their budget, they could have made, you know, just the regeneration aspect of it could have worked. So
right. I mean, a simple little ooh, you know what I mean? Just a simple little play on the screen would have been so much better, because as soon as one got destroyed, another one could have appeared that was already hanging, like the one that they pulled off and realized it was a person's face. Maybe perhaps that could have been one that just got taken over, and now you can see half of his face is starting to turn into this as he's still, being that human form. That would have been awesome. I mean, shoving a whole bunch of straw in people's mouths, you know what? That's pretty cool, but after a while, they start yelling at you and saying that tastes like crap.
Yeah. So, so much potential that was lost.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And let's see, moving on. Friday, what did you not like about the movie?
Okay, can I just we'll stack their stuff on and then I'll add a continuance. On top of that, my thoughts was the death scenes. Like they get stabbed or with a pitchfork or whatever, and how fast they die, and what sounds they don't make, and how they're not screaming or talking or whatever, or the dying scenes were horribly horrible. And yeah, that is my addition onto their stuff.
Okay.
Ow.
Well,
Oh.
Chaos.
Well, to be completely honest, I think this movie would have been better not as a movie. First of all, take the Amityville name off of it. And two, with how the British like to do a lot of dialogue dumping for their backstories, it should have been more done as a series. As an episode by episode thing. That way they could have gotten each episode would add more to the story as they went along. And then, of course, how the hell is there a brand new aluminum cast iron skillet in a place that has been abandoned for decades? That bitch was still shiny. The fuck? Look at
They
that
don't
shit.
make them like they used to.
Throw a little dirt on that or something. Make it look worn or some shit.
Yeah.
Bad thing is, that was one of my biggest problems with this whole damn movie was set dressing.
Kids, this
I love
the
that we
skillet is
all hate it.
ornamental.
We're
The
all
skillet
hating
is
on that damn
ornamental.
pan.
So,
I
Ron,
might have to make the
did-
skillet judges you.
Ron, what did you not like about the movie?
There were several things. One is the inconsistency of the Scarecrow, where sometimes it has superhuman strength and sometimes it doesn't. And I really couldn't figure out what exactly its power set was supposed to be for a spirit from the nether realm or beyond the grave or whatever is actually driving the Scarecrow, supposedly Lester, but
You went mute.
You went mute.
I accidentally hit the power button on my mic. All right. What was I saying? Oh, yeah.
Lester.
Oh, sorry.
Lester.
Yeah. Yeah, the inconsistency of the Scarecrow itself. I couldn't figure out what its power set was, because it was supposed to be Lester the molester, I guess, that attacked the girls and had fun with them in his little workshop area, which is where the final stand is made. But the spirit supposedly resides on that land and animated the Scarecrow. So who is Lester? Is Lester now the spirit? The spirit's now Lester, or what? I wasn't entirely certain what that was supposed to be about. And sometimes he has.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Is Pyle going to be okay? It looked like you triggered him. Maybe with a little pun there.
We need no more. We just need Lester of this movie.
Okay, that's one.
It wasn't even a good one.
I know, but it
All
counts.
right.
I didn't
Anyway.
say it was going to be a good one. I was just thinking, as soon as you said Lester to molester, I was like, really? We
Okay.
just went that far.
Yes, you get
Ratatoskr
some because
needs
he
to
did
drink.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay,
Okay.
buddy.
You may
So-
proceed, Ron.
So in one scene, he picks the police officer up off the ground. So he has some sort of superhuman strength. But then when it really comes down to it, he's beaten by a frying pan. I would think he'd be a little bit more resilient than that. Like, it really wouldn't have any effect on him whatsoever, being from the nether realm or beyond the grave or whatever he is. And then in the fight in the workshop with the sisters, and she grabs a crowbar and he starts wrestling with her with the crowbar. If he has superhuman strength, he should have been able to just crush that down upon her, no problem. So how is she able to resist him? And why did he wait so long? Why was there such a big pause before he actually did anything? I thought, oh, this dude's a haunt actor. He just jumps out and says boo, and then he waits for you to clear his scene before he resets or does anything else. But he didn't do anything. He waited until somebody came along to disrupt what he was doing, and I thought, that doesn't seem right. Does he have a conscience now? I don't know what's going on here. So I didn't really get the Scarecrow at all, other than the fact that he just looked cool. And also, I think that they could have done a better job with their timing of when they filmed the movie. If it was Amityville cornfield, there was no corn whatsoever in the movie. And that only happens after harvest, which is usually right when the fall begins. So this had to be filmed sometime in the fall. It would have been a hell of a lot scarier had you actually done it when the corn was in full growth and you had all the stalks that are like 6 feet tall, like other Scarecrow movies have, when people are running through the cornfield and they can't see their way and they get lost and they don't know where they're going, but somehow the Scarecrow is right there with them with some weird teleportation kind of power that he just miraculously seems to be where he needs to be until it comes down to the final chase to the workshop, and then he's running behind them rather than just popping out of the door when they get to the workshop. Like, surprise, that would have been a hell of a lot scarier. So what was his power set? I didn't get it, and it really made no sense to me. There was no consistency with the Scarecrow, and there's so many other things that they could have done better to at least make it more understandable, I guess.
The problem with the cornfield is what they'd said through it is that the corn never grew after they killed Lester's, because there would always be a fire or something would keep the corn from growing. So that's why they couldn't have they really wanted the corn to grow, but they could never get the corn to grow because the land was steeped in evil, and there would either be a fire or something would keep it from growing.
That sounds like retconning after the fact when you say, oh, we have the specific time to film in this area. Unfortunately, the corn is not grown in as we were hoping that it would be. So how do we explain this away? Oh, well, we'll just add a line of dialogue.
Yeah. That was just yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, but they could have done so much better with it, if there had been some chases through a cornfield where people were getting lost and disoriented and all of that. But it even so, it still doesn't really make sense on the Scarecrow being inconsistent the entire time. And then when they finally they find the video from the mom that explains the backstory of Lester and I suppose how he became the Scarecrow, it's essentially Freddy Krueger.
Mhm.
It's Freddy Krueger's backstory. Oh, the parents wanted revenge, so they burned him up, just like Freddy Krueger. So now you have this malevolent spirit that's basically killing people. But, Freddy Krueger uses better quips.
All right.
True. And if you wanted to pick any bad guy
He's
that would you would come back as after you had been burned alive, why would you want to be made out of straw? Like in The Wizard of Oz, the
Which is
Scarecrow's
extremely
one
flammable.
thing is, yeah. So I was burned alive. I'm going to be a scarecrow now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I don't
So-
know.
You could burn him again and again and again.
Well, I have
Obviously,
to
it didn't
admit-
work, or else there wouldn't be a sequel.
Well, I have to admit that even I, as far as the first bullet point in my notes, I had down with what I didn't like about the movie. The whole revenge against a child predator angle seems lifted from the Freddy Krueger backstory. So at least we're in agreement with that. Also, just to read verbatim here, just going down the bullet points. Oh, wow. I live amongst the corn, surrounded by corn.
You're very corny.
I was waiting for that. That's one. Now, this,
Seems kind of eerie.
That's your
only
two.
in Indiana. That's only in Indiana. Now, reading verbatim, I have down, this is set in the UK. How? What? Just co-opting the name there. And this is mostly a couple of sisters and their respective families having drama issues with the killer scarecrow angle. Clearly more of an incidental extra thing added in. The horror tropes are strong with this one because at least they get the whole I can't get a signal thing out of the way pretty quick. So they're just walking down and they get lost and yada, yada, yada. How many times they all split up, all the better to kill everybody with. But besides the Freddy Krueger backstory lift, this seemed, besides Amityville, just hoping to bank on the name, this lifts bits from the Nightmare on Elm Street series and Child's Play, simply because his spirit is now inhabiting an otherwise inanimate object, a giant doll, if you will. And Friday the 13th, if you factor in the campground angle. But while Pyle was talking about what he didn't like about it, I came on to an idea, since we're lifting bits and pieces from various other sources, pop culture sources, this could have ended in a way where they don't burn him per se, but they defeat him. He's on the ground and somebody takes the mask off and goes, "It was Mr. Carruthers all along. And I would have done it too if it weren't for you darn kids and that dog of yours." And then suddenly just like a Great Dane walks by. Just
That is how this movie feels. Like Scooby-Doo could have done better.
yes. So I'm going to say, yeah, this is serviceable, but as far as interest goes, mine was waning pretty much the entire time. This is one of those movies I like to think of as I could just throw it on, not pay attention, and then still not get lost. Also, I want to point out that when they're up in the attic area of the house, after hearing a noise, they go up and there's nothing. Then they find the camera and the battery still works. The camcorder battery still works. There's no possible way that actually could have happened. especially with something that old. It said, I'm recording this in 1993. Okay. Sure. 1993, do the math. It still works. How is it still working? Did they find the power cord? I don't know.
Energizer. It keeps on going and going and going.
We tried to kill him, but he keeps coming back. That darn bunny.
Scarecrow is as good as that dang battery. Because he's going to keep going on and on.
So, let's see. We're an hour in. Let's go ahead and pay some bills here. We'll be back with some ratings and recommendations and various other fun stuff. Go ahead and roll the thing.
Greetings and shabebans. We are the Retro Redoctopus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Redoctopus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh.
And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Door King Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Redoctopus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
And welcome back, everyone. So we here at the Elliott Network are not only watchers of movies, but we are writers and readers of books and stuff. So, Friday, why don't you tell us what kind of books they should be reading?
I will. Let's say hi. And, well, I don't want to know about your horn and where you hide it. So, we have 2 anthologies we'd like you to know about. The Owlite Menagerie, where everybody here, except for Pyle and Josh, has a story in because they didn't get it in time. And you all can find amazing tales from owls and mice to the never-ending Groundhog Day of insane asylums, ghost stories, angel stories, stories where there are weird things in cars, and so much more. And all the proceeds for the first year goes to the Pro Literacy Foundation, where every adult has a right to literacy. please check out our book, or you could send a donation in, and we would be grateful either way. But we hope you read our stories, because there's some amazing people in that book. Kirsten Lawson, Rob Smales, and so much more. And where did it get hidden? It's here somewhere. It ran away. Nightmare Whiskers.
I don't see it.
Here, kitty.
Hold on a second. Give me a second. It's here somewhere.
Either
Either way, Nightmare Whiskers is a collection of stories where, of course, James had to overachieve, and he has 2 stories in it. And there are stories about... Why is my brain blank? There are stories about Gronk the monster. There's stories about... Okay, I know everybody has heard of Mr. Jones. How about the sequel, Mr. Jones and You? And so much more. I am aggravated because I cannot find this.
It might have gotten pulled down when we were making new overlays at some point. I'm not sure.
Yes, I know where to go to find it real quick. I'm just trying to get it to load.
Oh, okay.
Because I have it in... I have posted it a million times somewhere else. Okay.
Okay.
It's there
I'm sorry,
somewhere.
this is taking a while. We've hit it
It's
somewhere.
okay. It's a good book, though.
Yes.
It's a good
Go
book.
buy it.
There's
Very
many.
Yes. There we go.
And of course, this one has the teaser for Patty's Monster and Me story. And, well, poem, I should say. Please find that cover and read all the things. I shall re-upload the cover later. I didn't realize it disappeared.
I didn't
Yep.
either.
It happens.
It went.
So ratings and recommendations, people. What do we give this, and do we recommend it to people? Out of 10, what did you give this, Del?
I'm actually giving it a 5 out of 10. It tried. I was intrigued. I liked the Scarecrow. I'm probably actually going to watch 2 to see if it did something decent with the story that it had ready to feed to people, you know? So I would recommend it to people. Not all people, but I would recommend it to some people, but I would tell them off the bat about the relationship, like, so that they didn't spend the first half of the movie confused trying to figure out what was going on. Be like, yeah, the guy, he's both of their dads and both of their ex-husbands, and no, we don't know why the girls got to hang out when they were little and then didn't. It's a mystery to us all. Maybe he didn't come out and admit that he was the father of her child until they'd gotten grown up a little bit and, you know, went off. So.
Okay. Pyle, what rating would you give this, and would you recommend it to anybody?
You know why I thought that was going to be flipped around? That's totally dyslexic right there.
What
What's a 2?
What happened to Rolly?
He fell off the counter and rolled all over, and I haven't rolled him back up because he's like, you know what? I don't care right now. So we just might have to make a new Rolly. But I was
himself.
No, he hasn't. I'm not quite sure who in the heck unrolled him, but I just know that he's not looking like himself.
You might say he couldn't ply himself.
I don't know. I was going to say that Pyle did a good job with the hand job.
Except for it's backwards.
It's a 2.
as yeah.
That's I really thought this was going to flip around, and I come to realize no. But yeah,
Before this delves
like
into the
that.
obvious discussion, go ahead. Do you recommend this?
you know what? It's one of those I would recommend to someone that wanted to start out into maybe a movie that isn't too scary, but I would have to warn them that it's very confusing.
Okay. All right. Friday, what do you rate this, and would you recommend it?
5, and well, I do want to watch the second one to see if they did any better. This is one of those meh. They did better than most movies we've watched, so they get a 5. But I really don't care anymore about this particular film.
Okay. Well, Chaos, what would you recommend this, and what do you rate?
I would probably have to stick with the 5, and I would probably recommend this to anybody that has a extreme fascination with BBC based material.
Okay.
Like our family.
So, Ron, what do you rate this, and would you recommend it?
I would probably give it a 4 because at least they tried, and the storyline was somewhat solid, but they could have, worked out a few of the kinks for it. It's just it moved a little slower than I would have liked. With first half of the movie was kind of slow pacing, and then the second half of the movie, a lot of the violence was more or less implied, and the kills that were shown weren't gory enough. They could have done a better job with that, and I don't know, maybe that was budget or makeup or whatever. So I can't rate it too high for those reasons. I wanted more, and it didn't really deliver, so I can't rate it much higher. But I don't want to rate it low either, like a 2, because I still think the story was solid enough to rate something a little bit higher. So I think a solid 4 is pretty fair. As far as recommending it, I don't know. I don't necessarily think that I would recommend it, but if somebody said, "Hey, let's watch this," I'd be like, "Are you sure?" I wouldn't stop them from watching it because overall it's not a bad movie, but I wouldn't necessarily say, "Hey, let's watch this," because there's so many better movies out there. So, yeah, it's kind of like that song on the radio that you don't really like, but you don't like it enough to where you're going to turn it if somebody else is in the car because they might like it. So you just sit there and you listen to it, even though it's not really your jam. It's kind of like that, somebody else wants to watch it, fine, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to say, "Hey, let's watch this." So I can't really recommend it, but I'm not going to turn it off either.
Okay. As far as I go, I give this as 5 out of 10. It was fine. I would recommend it if you're in the mood for something completely underwhelming. And I'm thinking the only way to really make this movie work better than the execution was is if to think of this as maybe an off-brand episode of the Goosebumps TV series. Like, we have Goosebumps at home, kids.
When you order Goosebumps off Temu.
Right. So, I unfortunately could not find any 5-star reviews on the Amazons because they don't have any that I could find. Flip that around. Anyway, but Dell, we were supposed to have Sam here tonight, but fortunately, Dell does have something from him to read us. So go ahead.
Yes. Sam Panico from B&S About Movies. His review for this one is 2 out of 10. The title is I Never Sleep. Is Amityville Cornfield a better title? I don't know. Nor can I comprehend how one family can have so many unmatching accents. But if I've learned anything, it's don't try to watch 60 Joe D'Amato movies in a row, followed by 3 Amityville movies, because you start to see the world as a very weird place. Don't follow my path. Tina and Mary are sisters who can't agree on what to do with the land their mother gave them when she died, land that could never grow corn and was probably haunted and will surely end everyone's lives. Then again, Tina did steal Mary's husband, so you can understand why they are fighting. There's a scarecrow that gets possessed by the spirit of a child-touching handyman, so, I guess there's an Elm Street in Amityville. That said, the scarecrow looks pretty scary in a few scenes, which is more than you can usually expect from these films. And review there. There was one more that was not terrible as far as explaining it a little bit. They rated it. This is from KB Toys 100. They rated it a 3 out of 10. This is Amityville Poor Crow. The amount of time it took me to think of that title pun is the same time it took the filmmakers to work on this movie. An estranged family inherits their dead mother's campground. The land was a cornfield that could never grow corn. Spooky. One sister slept with the other's husband long ago, and now they hate each other. Much to one's dismay, they decide to try and fix up the campground and make a go of it. Unfortunately, there happens to be 2 murderous scarecrows on the grounds. They caught something we didn't, apparently. Typical of most of today's low-budget horror from the UK, Amityville Scarecrow looks nice. Lighting and cinematography are competent. Actors are mostly decent, with the only exception being the sister Mary. Her shrill voice and angry attitude make you want the Scarecrow to offer ASAP. Music and sound design are also pretty poor. I would be surprised if the music wasn't all free stock tracks, and the audio in several scenes has an extremely loud sound floor of wind, likely to mask that the audio was recorded with that same noise, I would guess. How about what we were there for, the horror content? The Scarecrow costume is basically a higher-end Halloween costume, but it looks decent. The kills, however, are uniformly awful. Most kills are off-screen, and we get a body with a dribble of blood from its mouth. If they had spent some money on even rudimentary special effects and provided some gore, Amityville Scarecrow could have been a passable slasher flick. Instead, we get another in the ever-growing long list of terrible Amityville flops. Oh, and how does this relate to Amityville, you ask? Well, it seems that the High Hopes house was located on the land and torn down to build this campground. How Long Island has mysteriously transported to the English countryside is not mentioned. The end.
All right.
So they were under the impression that there were 2 scarecrows, which is something that was what Ron kind of was hinting at, that there might have been, since the scarecrows had different powerings. I think both Pyle and Ron mentioned that there was the potential for that, but we never had it confirmed. So that person just assumed that that was it. So.
All right. We'll find out in the sequel if you actually watch it.
Yeah, I might get around to that this week. I have a bunch of shit to do, but
I did actually start watching it tonight after I rewatched the first one, and essentially it does follow both of the sisters, Tina and Mary. Although up to this point, I've only seen the one, so I don't know if the second one is actually in it, and I'm still not entirely certain what the plot is yet. So. Right now, it's up in the air. I haven't finished watching it, but I did actually start it.
All right.
All right.
You're going to have to let us know what's what, because I have no plans on watching the sequel.
I'll finish watching it.
Okay.
Speaking of which, we're going to determine what we're going to be tortured with next week. So let's bring out the wheel and see what it does.
Morality, turn. Tell us a lesson.
Okay. Are we ready? 3,
Yes.
2, 1.
Let's do.
Whee!
I'm the wizard.
I'm cheating the wheel.
Okay. What happened?
Okay, there we go. The Amityville Haunting from 2011.
It's working for you. It's not on my
Huh.
screen.
It took a
Amityville
pause.
It's still pausing.
Okay.
It's still pausing on this side, but the Amityville Haunting, you say?
Yes.
This
That is
sounds
what
delightful.
it is. I took it off, so now it's yes.
I didn't
Never
even get to
should.
see it. Was it there?
Sorry.
And now it's gone.
Technology, everyone.
Right.
Woo!
I spun
a
it and then
scary
I went and
computer.
hit it. So yes, it is the Amityville Haunting from 2011. I know nothing about it.
Well, I'm guessing there's a haunting. It's in the
I'm
title.
betting. You
I
never
don't
know,
Can't
though.
be too sure about these Amityville knockoff movies, man, because a lot of them haven't really been living up to the reputation.
This one had a
Remember,
scarecrow.
Clown House had nothing to do with clowns.
At
Okay.
first it did.
The
That don't
Amityville
count.
Haunting looks like it is on Tubi.
Most
Why
of
am I
these
not
have been.
surprised?
Sorry. Sorry.
In disregard of the shocking DeFeo murders, an unsuspecting family moves into the infamous house on 112 Ocean Avenue. Now ghostly apparitions start to appear in their video surveillance system. Can they survive the Amityville Haunting?
Oh God, is this going to be another Paranormal Activity type movie?
Apparently
Or
it is
all
found
the security
footage.
cameras?
Yes.
Oh God.
Are we going to get a shot of the Airbnb across the street?
I don't
Found
know.
footage, like security movies that are told entirely through the POV of security cameras, are my least favorite trope. I hate them. I can't stand them.
You guys will
I
have to
like
clear me
the-
on this one.
I kind of like the feel of it. I've never really been a fan of found footage films in general.
Some of them are better than
way-
others. Like Ghost Encounters, I thought those two movies were really well done. But then there are others that they're kind of a headache.
Ghost Facers.
Like that
Anyway.
Cloverfield movie.
No, like Blair
shakiness
Witch.
of the camera gave me. Yeah.
I cannot stand the Blair Witch movies. Oh God, they give me a
Yes.
headache.
It had a
Stuff like that I
decent
can't
story,
watch.
but yeah, the jitteriness of the camera and everything just gave me a headache.
All right, well, if Amityville Haunting is what it is, then I will suck it up and
Yeah.
watch
You know
it.
what?
Oh, you will suck it up. You will suck it up good.
You
The
know what?
link
It might
is
be
in all the places.
Sorry.
It might be so scary, you might want to make sure that you have your pan ready. Because apparently that pan can take on evil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's got the Teflon on it, so
Might use a wit for this one.
perhaps. So until next time, Del, where can we find you?
You can find me at Carrie, Kari Sanders on Facebook. And if you see this crow, that is me judging you. And you have found me. From there, you can find all of my links to my author page, to my Owlite stuff, to Splash Pages. You'll find me tomorrow night and every Tuesday night over on Splash Pages, where we do comic book news reviews and interviews. And we'll be interviewing Kelly Thompson tomorrow, who is writing the new Absolute Wonder Woman for the DC All-In Initiative that just started this month, with all DC titles starting anew. And yeah, she's
Again?
awesome. Yeah, well, Marvel had its renewal. Now this is DC's renewal. And they're going to have it's a whole bunch of shit going on. So yeah.
Usually there's a crisis first, and then they reset everything.
There were things that happened that caused things to get reset, and there's a new universe, the Absolute Universe, wherein Darkseid won, And now we have like absolute Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman are all coming up, but they're brought up differently. Like Batman's parents are still alive. Well, one of his parents, I think, is still alive, but he grows up without the mansion or anything like that. He has a rough start. Superman's origin story is totally different. And Wonder Woman is like, instead of growing up on the island as the Amazon stuff, she is raised by Circe in hell. And it's just like all this new takes on if the superheroes didn't have their strong backgrounds, how they come up fighting through different types of diversity to embrace their superhero-ness in a world that is much darker than usual. So
Okay.
it's I have read the new the first issue of each one, and they are all really good. And we're going to be having Jason Aaron, who wrote the Superman, coming up soon. But yeah, tomorrow, Kelly Thompson.
Pyle, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me here on the Elliott Network. You can find me this Thursday helping Maximus Christian Bryant with the Ohio Hunters Association Awards show. Yeah, we're looking forward to that because now we get to figure out who won the awards from all the haunts that nominated haunters. So we're excited about that one. You can also find me on Facebook. And yes, I will start doing my TikTok once again. I put everything on hold during the haunt season.
Okay. Friday, where can we find you?
I'm everywhere. I hide in the shadows. I'm at the usual places.
Not on screen.
She's hiding in a cornfield.
No,
She phases in and out of reality.
Can you figure out which one is my gravestone?
The one that's well lit.
Couldn't tell you. So
Can't read them.
it's kind of a Where's Waldo situation.
Pretty much.
Where's Friday and Chaos? Chaos, where can we find you?
On the floor where she dropped me.
Okay. Ron, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my author page, Ronald W Gillespie Jr. author. Buy my book, by Owlite Menagerie, by Nightmare Whiskers, and by Fake Propaganda. That was released earlier this year, which we haven't really talked about. And you can also find me on TikTok, not on Pyle's page. I have my own called @WolfDojo. That's Wolf with a U, WULFDOJO, where I make martial arts related content sometimes when I'm in the mood, and probably should be more diligent about that than I actually am. And one final word about Amityville Scarecrow. One could say that it was shot in panorama view. She really gave that scarecrow a panoramic view. You're welcome.
My brain hurts now.
Okay. And I am your humble servant, UncleNecRo. You can find me pretty much in your closet at night in a farmhouse in eastern Nebraska, surrounded by actual cornfields and sometimes bean fields, depending on which year this is. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a couple of blogs, and right here on the Owlite Network. Whenever I show up, or whenever they say my name 3 times in a mirror. So, UncleNecRo, hello. I come bearing corn dogs.
Yes. All right.
Stab.
Oh, speaking of saying names in the mirror, we should do a quick sad tribute to Tony Todd.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was really sad news. He was still pretty young, and just
oh yeah.
Rest in peace.
Candyman in the mirror 5 times and see if Tony Todd will come back.
You must be at the Hell's Dungeon, because if you're there, you can read it in the mirror 5 times.
Made me sad. So anyway, we're gonna go see more Amityville.
Okay. And until next time, spay and neuter your friends and seek help.
There is no help for us.
The pan is judging you.
You're still here. But I
Can
said
I put a
get
face
out.
on that pan?
What the
Put a
hell?
face on it.
Googly
The
eye.
movie's over. Go
Put
home.
Trevor's face on it.
Get out of here. They're gonna
The face
like
of the
have
pan
another
needs a
sequel.
face.
I don't want that.
Bold panorama.